My name is Alex Roth. I'm a psychotherapist in private practice, and I serve on the board of directors of B4U-ACT. B4U-ACT is a unique organization that was formed primarily to promote appropriate, respectful, non-coercive psychotherapy for minor attracted people. We do a couple of other things as well, but that was our founding mission, and we still have that mission. We use the term minor attracted people because the term pedophile has been so sort of popularized to mean a person who abuses children that there isn't a word besides minor attracted people as a phrase to refer to people who are attracted to minors or children and don't act on that attraction. They're not child abusers. They're people who have certain feelings and thoughts, and they deserve to have a respectful word to call themselves, and minor attracted people is what they call themselves. So I used the word non-coercive to describe the kind of psychotherapy that B4U-ACT promotes for minor attracted people. And someone on the street might think, well, don't these dangerous people need coercion? Don't we need to control them? And you can see why people would have that idea, because the only people you ever hear about who are pedophiles or minor attracted people are people who've gotten caught abusing children. And so sometimes they have been to jail, and sometimes they have just had other things happen to them. This large population of people who are attracted to minors and don't want to interact with them sexually for whatever reason, and don't do it, they don't need any coercion. They don't need to be coerced. They've already taken their position. They are, just like everyone else, capable of controlling themselves. I mean, if you're a heterosexual adult and say you're a woman and you find men attractive, you don't jump on men. You don't take advantage of men. You just know that you're attracted to them, and you do something with that, whatever you choose to do. But that same kind of respect for autonomy isn't often granted to people who find minors attractive. And there are people who are exercising their autonomy and not committing crimes against kids. So you might ask, so then why do they need therapy? People who are attracted to kids also have like the regular problems. In fact, they have some special problems that are not because they are struggling not to abuse a child, that it is because they are afraid of what other people think of them. It's a very highly stigmatized population. Most minor attracted people, it's either completely secret, their feelings, or they've told just a very few number of people. It's kind of lonely. It makes you have trouble trusting other people because you think, well, yes, but if you knew what my thoughts and feelings are, you would hate me. But also they have regular problems. They have employment problems. They have friendship problems. They have issues trying to separate from their family or issues with difficult family members. They have relationship issues. They have lots of times self-esteem issues. I've been working with minor attracted people for about 10 years now, and honestly, we don't really talk about their minor attraction all the time. Not even remotely. We talk about being assertive and how to deal with depression or anxiety and how to develop friendships and have a good quality of life. So they have the same need for therapy that other people. They benefit from therapy in much the same way as anyone else. I actually got interested in this topic through an episode of This American Life. It was called Help Wanted, and it was about a teenage boy who realized he was attracted to kids and he wanted therapy, and he couldn't find any therapist who would believe what he said or felt that they knew what to do with him. They knew how to treat him. And I just felt like that's a shanda, that's a shame. If somebody is saying, I need help, and you say, oh gosh, well, I don't really know what to do with you, you're on your own, or tell me what you've really done. What have you really been up to? That's not going to be helpful to them. So I just looked at the web page for that episode of This American Life, and one of the organizations that was listed was B4U-ACT. So that actual young person who was in that long ago episode of This American Life podcast was sort of my doorway into doing this work. What I do with Before You Act, in the beginning, when I first was volunteering, I did some writing, I did some other kind of volunteer work. We maintain something called a signatory list, which therapists can ask to be included on if they want to work with minor attracted people. And in order to be included, the therapists have to agree with a certain set of principles about how they're going to handle minor attracted clients, which you can go on our website if you're interested and just read what that signatory list set of principles says to people. And then they are interviewed to make sure they're kind of on the level. And I got on the signatory list pretty quickly. So that's why I've been working with minor attracted people for about 10 years. And now I am on the board of directors. I do that kind of board work. One of my long-term projects as a board member was originally, I wanted us to have a table in the vendors room at this famous conference for therapists on the East Coast. And I just applied. And we thought, oh, we'll have a little table and we'll give out brochures about our organization. And the organization said, nope. They wanted to know what do we do? And they were like, it's not the right vibe, was kind of the feeling, it's a very upbeat kind of conference. But really, the truth is that minor attracted people is a super kind of radioactive issue, and you can't really have like a sane discourse about it. So then they said, well, why don't you do a brochure about Before You Act? And so I wrote a brochure and we published it, and it was very beautiful and kind of nice. And when I sent it to them, they were going to put it in their merch bag, their swag bag. And that's the thing that every person who comes to the conference gets, a tote bag, and it has a bunch of informational material in it. And they looked at my beautiful brochure with the picture of the sunset, and they were like, no, we can't do that either. Oh, sorry, we wasted your time. And then I said, okay, let me write an article for your magazine. And they were like, all right, let's do it. It's important. And I wrote an article for the magazine, and there was a lot of back and forth, which I expected, because again, you're trying to make it acceptable to people. It's a disturbing topic. I am not unaware that minor attraction is a disturbing topic for people. So I don't expect people not to feel disturbed. But I wrote this article, and they were going to publish it. They accepted the article for their magazine. And then a couple of weeks later, they got back to me and said, we sent it upstairs and they just think it's not right for us. So eventually they did publish an article in which they interviewed me and they interviewed some other people. I was not as happy with that article as I was with my own, because I thought my own represented what I really wanted to kind of say about minor attracted people, specifically as therapy clients, not as, just in general. I felt theirs was a little bit more negative and really did have this a little bit of like, oh, you got to keep an eye on these people, which sometimes you don't. And you as a therapist are capable of assessing, like you would with any other client. You know the difference between someone who says, I'm so mad at my mom, I'd like to punch her, and somebody who you think is actually going to beat their parent up. And, you would handle that differently. But you have to understand the difference between people's thoughts and people's actions. And people can have all kinds of wishes and thoughts and not take actions. And I feel like they didn't go as far as I would have liked them to go in just pointing out that it is safe to have a client who is a MAP or a pedophile, and you don't have to do anything vigorous to make sure they never slip up any more than you do with people who have other difficulties. But you can assess that without special training. Well, they did publish the article, and as far as I know, there were some therapists wrote letters and said, I'm really glad to hear you dealing with this. Or I am treating minor attracted people, and I have never heard anybody talk about it. And I'm so glad to see this magazine taking that question on. But that was kind of all. There was no negative feedback at all. Before You Act also runs, one of our features is we run a workshop, or sometimes you've called it a conference, every year, in which we invite researchers and psychotherapists of different kinds to come and interact with minor attracted people. We have a bunch of workshops, and some of what happens there that is helpful is the content of the workshops, and some of it is really just sort of demystifying who's a minor attracted person. I mean, when you meet people and you hear their story, you're like, oh, wow, that's hard, but you seem like a nice person. It's just the principle of letting people see the humanity of people that they might be afraid of. And this has been very, very helpful for getting more therapists being willing to work with this population. It's very lucky if in your life you get to feel like you were called to do something. This isn't the only thing I've ever been called to do, but I had a feeling about it when I first started. I think it's not for everyone. Therapists who are experienced find out who they can and can't work with. I know who I don't like to work with. I really don't like to work with super angry people. I don't know. They just make me nervous. And then there's things that are sort of outside your purview. Like I don't work with people who are in the middle of an eating disorder because you need specialized treatment. That's not me. I'm a generalist. But the minute I started doing this, I was like, oh, look at this is something that it's not that I have special expertise for working with minor attracted people. It's that I am really tolerant. And so that I don't feel disturbed by the things people say for the most part, or at least not that set of things. And again, I've only ever worked with people who had not offended and who didn't want to offend against a kid. And that probably makes a difference. I know that there are people who feel like the laws should be changed. And I could probably work with those people, but it might be a little harder. People who think, well, really should be okay legally for me to have a relationship with a 13-year-old. And I'm like, we're not going to agree on that. So we're going to have to but I wouldn't not work with that person because of their thoughts, because I would have just as much interest in keeping that person safe, keeping kids safe, helping them make wise choices so that they didn't, mess their life up, and helping them have a good life so they don't want to mess their life up, because that's a big part of it is, if you're feeling better, you don't think, oh, I don't care about myself. I'm just going to do something that will really ruin me. So I feel kind of charmed about doing this work, although honestly, it's really just regular therapy that I'm doing with people who happen to have this attraction. In the 10 years that I've been with Before You Act is about 20 years old. We have been an all-volunteer organization, and we've kind of come up against the ceiling of how much volunteers can do with their time. If we had better fundraising, we would probably be able to do more things. We do many other things besides our signatory list. But what we really need is an executive director, somebody who's a professional manager of nonprofits. We're a nonprofit. We just need somebody who can help us grow, and we can do so much more to help people. And that will also, help kids. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for an executive director who is a thinker outside the box, who is able to see possibilities and see through stigma and conventional kind of ways of viewing things, because somebody could do an enormously good piece of work by helping us grow. Because, when you help people who are attracted to kids, you're going to help them to not break the law, and that will be good for kids.